Real quick, hey, thanks for being here tonight. We'll get started in just a few minutes if you people still trickling in. If you have a spouse or anyone else who might be interested in what is going on but wasn't able to be here tonight, it is going, there's a live stream of what we're going to do here tonight. So if you want to share a link to anybody who might be interested, it is on. If you search for Crossroads Wellness Center on Facebook or Instagram, it's shared on their page. So if you're looking for that link or where you can find it, it's probably also search Headwaters Church. It's on Headwaters' YouTube account if you're interested. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Thanks. Hey, thanks for being here tonight. Welcome. Really great that you guys came out. I know you probably know very little. Hopefully that's why you're here, because you want to know more. My name is Luke Such. I'm one of the board members for Classic Roots Christian School. I also happen to be one of the pastors here at Headwaters Church. So if you've never been to Headwaters, thanks for being here tonight. You're always welcome. Come wander in. It feels weird. You just sitting behind me like that. I'm not here for that at all. As I said before, if anybody's interested in what's happening here, there is going to streaming live on our YouTube channel. So if you want to send that and search Headwaters Church on YouTube, and you will find the link to what's going on here right now. This is information you need about Classical Roots Christian School. You're in the right place, right? This is what you were looking for. Hopefully not. You're looking for the men's Bible study. It's downstairs tonight. We picked them out. So I'm going to pray for us, and I'm going to hand the mic over to people with more information and far more expertise in this world. So let's pray. Lord God, it is an immense privilege to be yours, to be covered by the love of your Son and your immense faithfulness that meets us over and over and over again. In the midst of our failure, you graciously, mercifully meet us again. And so we pray, Lord, for a proper recognition of
because of his stupidity that you're all in this room. So it really does take a person to do something stupid where there's 9,000 steps in front of you to get to the end goal, but you have the ability to completely ignore all of those steps and still see what the end thing is. This thing that's invisible. I've had this vision of the school for the last 2 years. I could see it 2 years ago. I can still see it now. And it still takes, I don't know, just some kind of special stupid to do that. And my dad did that too with this building. This campus used to be a wreck. There were 9,000 things to do before moving the entire church down here. And we're still here in this beautiful building. So I will humbly accept the founder position as long as it comes with that little stupidity asterisk. So why would we start school? I think the very obvious reasons to start school, especially on an individual level, and the reasons why you guys are here, is that I had a couple of these. My wife is here, she's pregnant with our third. And when you have a child where they don't really tell you anything, they just give you the kid and you just go home. And then you gotta figure it out. And one of the things that you have is this inevitable education questions, like right here in the back of your head. And the older and older they get, it just keeps inching closer and closer to the front of your brain. And so, if you have any of those turn into these. And then that question gets closer and closer and closer. So, what I was going to do with education with my children actually got brought to me a little bit faster than I was anticipating because of the events 3 years ago. And so, because of my expertise in microbiology and immunology and infectious disease, I was in a unique position to see some of the bad actors of COVID early on. And I, as we aforementioned, my proclivities towards doing stupid things, I was pretty outspoken about that early on. And that got me a message from a patient of mine who asked me to come to a school board meeting and advocate for her children. So, I had never been to a school board meeting. I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went and I sat down and I was really quiet for a long time. So I went to more meetings and then I started talking. And then that was super fun. These people were really nice. And then I got to hire a lawyer because a group of people contacted the Attorney General and tried to get my license taken. And so that was fun. And then like 25 pages later, my lawyer kind of slam dunked on them and then they went away. I really actually do like lawyers. I never worked with one before, but I really like mine. They're expensive, but I like them. And so through that experience, I really was forced with the question of how am I going to try to do education? And it was just a really turbulent experience that I was like, it just planted a seed. And the seed was I'm going to start school. And I kept saying it, kept saying it, kept saying it. I'm going to start school, I'm going to start school. And for every person that said you can't start school, there's like 9,000 things you got to do. I just used that and I just watered the seed just a little bit. And it just kind of kept growing and kept growing. And so that really turned into me sitting down at home. I got a notebook out, pulled out a piece of paper, and I put it down and I put Caleb's Christian School on the top of it. And I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. Cross that out. And then I was like, Crossroads Christian School. I didn't like that either, so I crossed that out too. And so I was trying to figure out what do I want this school to be. I couldn't figure out what I wanted it to be, but I kind of knew what I wanted it not to be. I did not want it to be political, and I did not want to take state funding. There were multiple reasons for that, but I saw kind of whenever there's money involved, there's usually a hook in it, and I think that that's where a lot of schools may find, maybe not now, but they may later, that the state's going to require you to do something that may compromise your morals or your foundation, and we just weren't going to do that from the start. And so that was kind of where I started. I started figuring out there's too many things to try to figure out, and essentially this is kind of the mantra that I've lived my life by. I knew this quote before I really knew this quote, and we can argue whether or not you agree with it, but the quote is, you never change things by fighting the existing reality, you change something. Build a new model Buck Such. Anyway, so this book really spoke to me. I felt like I had already known it, and maybe Buck felt like he already had known it too. I'm pretty sure this guy said it before him. He's older, but this really, it just sparked something in me, and that seed kept kind of growing and kept growing and growing. And I was just trying to basically create something that I would want to put my kid in. And so I looked at this from actually a medical perspective, which was a little bit different. I was trying to look at this from answering the why and the hows of why do I want to start a school, why do children have problems. I looked at the mental and physical issues that I was seeing in my practice, in the hundreds, if not thousands of children that I get to see in my practice. What are the problems that they have, and what has education role been with those problems? And can I put them up, or start them at a foundation that puts them in an environment where those problems are less likely to manifest? That's what I was trying to figure out. Because of the way that I treat patients, that was kind of a unique way to look at it. And that's probably why some of you are in this room. And that was what I wanted to get across tonight, was that was really the origin of why I wanted to start a school. It was kind of mixed in there with all of this, the weird of the last 3 years, the fact that I had children, and then now, how can I help? How can I raise a child that doesn't have a 50% chance of diagnosis of a chronic disease? What environment would raise a child that does not suffer from anxiety? And so these are the questions that I was trying to ask. And basically I got to the point where I needed a school board. I needed to find people that were going to be able to help me. And then I was reading this Mark Twain book on vacation, and this popped up. In the first place, God made idiots, and this was for practice, and then he made school boards. So far, if anyone's counting when I tell my mom I said the I word and the S word today. But now, I found all the people who didn't think that I was stupid or thought, man, that sounds like a good idea. And I asked them to be school board members. When I was putting together the presentation, I was imagining them being behind me and me introducing them to you. But I'm going to introduce them now. Amy, can you raise your hand? This is Amy Shelton. She was one of the moms at the school board, standing in perfect posture, keeping her eyeballs on these school board members, and she is on your school board. Nick, raise your hand. So Nick was brought to my attention after we had started the school. This is again one of those things that, gosh, just felt like God's sovereignty was really in this. He kept pushing me and the board into many, many decisions that made things very easy that would have been very difficult, and Nick was one of those. Luke already introduced himself. Linda, if you raise your hand. So Linda has an asterisk by her name. If you notice, there's 6 people here. It's hard to split a 3-3 vote. Linda is our head of school. She is a non-voting board member. The reason we put that together is if Linda goes off the rails and we need to vote to fire Linda, which she would never go off the rails. But if she did, Linda's a non-voting member, and so that's why we have this set up the way that we do. I do need to give credits to other people who are not here. Kent Neischwander. So Kent Neischwander and Lexi Theory, they were part of our breakfast club. If you guys listen to the podcast that I did with Luke and Linda, they were the original part of the breakfast club. That they are not here, they're not on the school board anymore, but they put a lot of time into this. Another person who's not here is Jen Schrock. Jen Schrock is on our school board. She's enjoying a lovely time in Florida right now with her husband. So these are the lovely people that are helping make your decisions. In the beginning, this was my school. I was making all the decisions. I was trying to go left and right as fast as I possibly could. The piece of paper said Caleb at the top. This is no longer my school. It is their school. I thankfully get to be a part of it. And quite honestly, this is God's school. That's how I feel about it. So for any of you who are concerned that I might go off the rails, that is quite possible. This is not my school anymore. And so hopefully that absolves some concerns. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to hand the mic over to Jennifer, is the future goals. And this is the the most dangerous part of the lecture because I get to do the unique part that gets everybody in trouble. But the picture of the school that I've had, and this may change, so this is not a guarantee, please hear me that this is not a guarantee that these things are going to happen. If I was king for a day and got to make the school the way I wanted it to, these 10 things would happen. The first 3 would happen in the first 3 years. Let's go to the first one. The first one's Enrichment Day. What is Enrichment Day? Very briefly, Enrichment Day looks like a third optional day at the school, on campus, off campus. We do not know. It would look like learning a foreign language. It would look like learning a musical instrument. It would look like learning how to do carpentry. It would look like something that wouldn't be a non-traditional classroom thing, but perhaps a life skill that you wish was taught to you when you were in school. And I really do think that this needs to happen for our school. And there's a lot of reasons we can get further into that. Maybe if you guys have questions at the end, we can start talking about it Enrichment Day. The second one is renovations to downstairs Building 6. What you are in right now is Building 6. So this is the largest building on campus. At the very end of this hall is the children's gym, and underneath it is basically an old cafeteria. It has bar stools put in. I have pictures, but I don't have time to show them to you. The school is right now currently putting together plans to renovate that building. They actually have done some demo on already. To give you guys a little sneak peek into why I really do believe God's hands and fingerprints are all over this. We've already had some significant donations come from people where we're talking like $50,000 donated so that we can renovate this space and have our own space so that we're not always elbow rooming the church out of places. The school board, Ken Neischwander, who's not here yet, not here anymore, he said, we need a point person. We can't go any further. We need a point person. So we all went away and prayed for a point person. And Linda Pearson emailed my dad 2 weeks later and said, hey, have you ever thought about putting a school on your campus? There's been so many things like that have happened that has just made everything unbelievably easy and also has just, I don't know, makes long nights and working hard very, very simple. Adding ages in classes. My goal, I'm going to say it out loud, so if you tell me it's not going to happen, I'll use all of that. I'll sprinkle my seeds and we'll see if I can get it to happen. My goal is in the next 3 years to have K through senior high. So I would like to, in the next year, to have junior high, and in the next 2 years or 3 years to have senior high added to that. It's a lofty goal. I think that there is a demand for it. Again, if I was king for a day, this is what we would be doing. The next few are going to get a little bit more in the weeds. The mentorship program looks like, this came out from a book called The Thomas Edison Education, and it would look like your graduate having to partner up with an approved mentor for the entire year with a, whatever, maybe it's in the line of business, maybe it's in a career path that they want to go through, but meeting with that mentor, going through different action steps, maybe even writing papers with that mentor, being creative thinking about what they're going to do with their life. That was the purpose of the mentorship that I would love to add for senior high. Same with the entrepreneur program. What if your sophomore had a really good idea? Your sophomore in high school had a really good idea. They applied for a grant through the school. What if the school gave them $10,000 to start their own company? What if they hired their own friends? And what if they got to own that company after they graduated? Sweet. Renovations to the second building. What if the school gets big enough to where we can then take money from the school, from tuition, and go to building 1 or building 4 or building 5, these other buildings that are sitting there empty, that need love, and we could, these buildings are, some of them are 15, 20,000 square feet. You can run a lot of students in and out of that school. So we have some options here. I don't even know if those buildings are open, by the way. Again, this is the part that gets me in trouble. If I get in trouble. Sports programs. This campus is literally made for the sports teams, sports programs. Like, this used to be an old YWCA. One of the constant criticisms of homeschool is that children don't get the same things offered to them that they would in public school, right? So so they don't get to play with friends, they don't get to be on the sports team. I think that is a fair criticism, and it doesn't have to be fair for our school. They don't have to be void of all things enjoyable. Scholarship program for children and families in need. We don't have an endowment yet, so we don't have a ton of money. I don't care. We're not worried about the money. If we need money, God's going to hand us money, and if we find a child or a family that's in need, we would love to sponsor that child. I don't know what the criteria of that looks like. I don't know how many we would be able to serve, what in the world that looks like, but that would be on the radar, and if I was king for a day. Seminary program, again, I did not know this about my dad. What if there was a kid in the school who wanted to go to seminary? What if the teachers in this church could actually set up a program to leapfrog them into ministry, going straight from here into ministry? Why? How silly is it that a private Christian school could cost you $60,000 a semester? How are you going to pay that back on the pastor's salary? What if we had a different option for that? And it didn't cost an arm and a leg. The last one, last one is integration of regenerative farming. So this one's majorly selfish for me, but this is also, when I whisper about ideas, this is one that gets people the most excited. What I would like to do with this, my office is starting regenerative farming. We did that a year ago. We're bringing organically grown food to our patients because of the health concerns that we have and the origins of this being with food and soil. What if part of the school, or part of the school's education, was teaching children how to grow food, how and what is in their soil and what matters. Also, life and death with animals on a farm. Teaches you life and death in general. And what if you could learn not only that, but the biochemistry of how that food actually interacts in your body when you have disease or when you don't have disease. How does this manifest as wellness inside of you? And when you don't have it, what kind of diseases come to you? What if that was part of your high school education? That gets me excited. So that's the stuff I get to stay up and think about, and that gives me a lot of fuel and energy to keep going throughout the week, to keep doing stuff like this. Thank you everybody for showing up. The next thing I'm going to do is hand this mic over to Jen. So Jen, can you raise your hand? So Jen very kindly came here. I don't think many of you knew, but Jen's been doing this school model in Barrington, Illinois for the last 20 years. So we have no idea what we're doing as far as we don't have graduates to look at them and say, this worked, this didn't, and Jen has all of that. So she's going to tell you and get a little bit more in the weeds about what this actually looks like and how it actually manifests in your children.
Thank you. Up down here. I may have feedback. Are we good?
Good.
Excellent. Excellent. It's so good to be with you all. I am Jennifer Burns, and I actually wear two hats. One is the Director of Academics for Turning Point Academy, and we are committed to help people around the country start schools like this one. And I'm also the founder of a school called Classical Consortium Academy in Barrington, Illinois, and we are going into our 18th year. And so I'm happy to share with you some of the fundamentals about this form of education. What's really important when we think about educating our children, we need to think about an education that is consistent with our purposes, right? Our purpose as humans. God put us on this earth to do two things: to glorify Him and enjoy Him forever, right? And so we need the type of education that helps our children understand who God is so that they can glorify Him and enjoy Him. And the type of education I'm going to talk to you about is exactly that kind of education. What's really important as parents is that we not only think about what is out there that we don't want for our children, but it's far more important for us to have our eyes fixed on the type of education we want to give our children. It's not enough to run away from something. Our children deserve us to run toward something excellent. And if you look at the analogy of running, have you ever tried to look backwards and run? You certainly can't run in a straight line. You certainly can't run fast. And if you're really looking behind you, you end up doing a U-turn and going toward the thing that you were trying to run away from. What I want to do is cast a vision for you about a type of education that you want to run towards, because it is truly a kind of education that will create the next generation of leaders, those who are going to be vice regents of God. This is a classical education. So in the name of the school, Classical Roots, what is classical education? Well, it's a philosophy of education that I love this quote by the University of Dallas Classics Department. It says this, that the function of a classical education has always been threefold. First is to engage the mind in the investigation of revolutionary ideas. The second is to train the tongue to speak with power and articulation. And third is to fire the imagination with examples of conduct that will guide us in our confrontation with life. This is the kind of education that your children are worthy of. So what kind of education does that? Well, it's a kind of education that understands how your child's brain works. The classical education is founded on something called the trivium, and it's this understanding of how all children develop. That at first, when they are young, they are in what is called the grammar stage, because they're so good at memorizing facts. Right? They can do that. They're like little sponges. In the logic stage, or when they're in junior high, they are darn good at arguing. Oh yeah, if you've got a junior high student in your home, you know how good they are. The sky's blue. No, it's not. Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to understand where a child is in their development, and we're going to train them according to that understanding. So that third phase is the rhetoric phase, the high school stage. This is the time when it's all about self-expression, right? If you can remember back to when you were in high school, that's probably the time where you asked to dye your hair or maybe have a few more holes in your ears, right? So that's the type of, we understand that students are at that age, and we train them up with a particular set of subjects, our approach to those students and our approach to those subjects. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. In the grammar stage, I like to call it the truth stage. If you've heard about classical education, people will often say it's the type of education that trains up students to know what is good and true and beautiful. And that is true. And I like to say that the grammar stage is that truth stage. It's about laying a strong foundation with facts, or the grammar of all subjects. We talk about this, Socrates talks about this type or this stage of education as one where we teach students to speak without error. We're focusing on the questions of who, what, where, when. Those are the tangible questions that a student at that age can answer. We're using tools like chants and songs to help those facts get into their brains. We're using things like narration, so students read something and then parrot back what it is they've learned, and imitation and writing. So they're reading and copying great works of literature, so they understand how to write well. We're teaching them subjects at this stage like Latin and grammar and history in chronological order, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and the grammar of all subjects. Then they move on to the logic stage, so that junior high, I like to call that the goodness stage. It is when a student is arguing because what it is they're seeing and what they know is at odds with each other. Right? So you've got a hypocrisy meter at that age that goes off like crazy. And so students are just trying to figure out how these things reconcile with each other. It's this time where they can see cause and effect, and they question how and why. And so what we're going to do at that stage is we're going to teach students how to debate. We call it discursive reasoning, reasoning that is actually founded in fact rather than, oh, I feel this way, and so I believe it. Socrates calls this particular period a time where a teacher's role is one of midwife. So imagine the image there of helping a student truly give birth to an idea rather than force-feeding the information to them. Using strategic questioning so that they give birth to the truth. In this section, we teach them about Latin and formal logic and critical thinking. Then in that third stage, it's the beauty stage. It's about your presentation. And here at this stage, we are focused on their communication, both in written and oral form. We help them understand how to persuade others. Again, this is on a foundation of facts. They've learned then how to logically argue, and now it's about how to present that information. At this stage, a teacher's role really is tutor. A student is independently learning, and a teacher is helping them dive deep and make strong connections. Some of the hallmarks of a classical education are that God is at the foundation of all subjects. Science is a study of His creation. History is a study of His story. Math is a study of His order of things. There's subject integration. In a classical education, we want our students to work smarter, not necessarily harder. So we combine history and literature so that they dovetail beautifully. Literature during a particular period of history, students are reading in their literature class this great historical fiction and biographies of that time period to give them a fully orbed picture of that period of history. We focus on mastery over grades. We use great historical fiction and great works of literature. No Captain Underpants here. History is taught in chronological order because it is a story. It's a story that unfolds. And when you teach history out of order, it is as though you picked up a book and read chapter 20, then fast forward to chapter 30 and go back to chapter 5. When you teach history in chronological order, students at a very young age can start to see cause and effect for the real purpose we teach history, which is to learn from it, right? Because it repeats itself. So we want to learn from people who did things right, and we want to learn also from people who did things incorrectly and do something better. Writing is practiced often and following a classical structure that focuses first on imitation. Our students use fables at the very beginning of their writing instruction so that they learn both virtue and how to write well. And lots of discussion and debate as students get older and are ready to do that in junior high and beyond. The thing is, we want to teach our students how to think, not what to think. They are indoctrinated in the government school system, and what we are trying to do is help them understand how to think through not only what can be done, but what should be done. We're training up virtuous humans. Schole is this idea that students need time to meditate on the things that they've learned. So in this hybrid model that's being proposed, our students are able to front load their learning in class and then have time to really sit with the great books that they're reading and the writing that they're needing to do. And, oh my goodness, a pleasing aesthetic I've never seen a more beautiful church than this one. And to have students be able to come to school in beauty, what a blessing. So the question is, does this kind of education work? Well, this is a proven education model. Our founding fathers were taught in this way. What does it do for your student? Well, when you have every subject taught from a biblical perspective, when God is the foundation of everything, then they come out with a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview. But what's great is that it's not only by God's standards that students are exceptional, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but also the world standard. And the reason why that matters less than God's standard, but it does matter, because we want young men and young women who are going to college and are getting seats at the table so that they can influence the world. So we want to train them up in a way that gets them that seat at the table. And so classically educated students, they score higher on the ACT and SAT in all categories than traditionally schooled students. This kind of education helps build true critical thinkers. Again, focusing on how to learn and how to think, not what to think. They're exceptional in their English skills. If you talk to college professors, they say two things. Actually, I'm going to say three things. One is that the greatest indicator for success in college is actually your reading and your verbal scores. That will help determine your success. College professors bemoan two things: that students are ill-prepared when it comes to reading and writing. What they say is that students are not being required to read good quality texts with rich vocabulary, and they're not asked to do it very often. And so reading is a muscle, and you have to learn how to comprehend more and more challenging texts in order to be ready for the challenging texts of college. And students, unfortunately, aren't ready. Then they bemoan the fact that they're not great writers. That students come in not knowing grammar, not knowing how to spell, not knowing how to communicate their ideas successfully. And so what happens is and I don't blame our public school teachers at all. They've got big classrooms of kids. And when you assign a writing assignment, you've got to grade a writing assignment. And that takes a pretty long time. So it's hard work, but it has to be done. Our students have to learn how to write and write long papers in order to be successful in college. And then foreign language acquisition. I talked to you about our students learning Latin. Well, Latin is an amazing tool. It is the foundation of our language as well as other Romance languages. And so when you learn Latin from little, you pick up foreign languages a lot easier. It's also a wonderful thing. Latin, there's something called the doctrine of transferability. So just as a student who learns how to play piano, actually it helps them with their math computation skills because you're using your hands in two different ways, maps the brain in that wonderful way. Well, Latin is similar to that. It is wonderful and great to learn Latin for Latin's sake, but it also helps map a student's brain for reasoning and math computation skills. Also, when you ask your students to read good quality literature, it is like they are able to take a time machine back in time and learn about a different culture, learn about a different time where things were not the way they are today. And this builds empathy. There was a study done about children and empathy, and of course the best way to build empathy is actually to make relationships with people of different cultures and different socioeconomic levels. But we can't all do that, right? We can't spend every week traveling around the world. But what they said is that when children are reading really great works of literature, they can build up that empathy. And gosh, don't we need more of that today? Right? And a greater understanding of the world, what I just talked about. And when we ask our students to do really hard things, we walk alongside of them so that they can do those hard things. They feel like they can take on the world. In our school, when students are juniors in high school, they write a 30-page thesis paper on a world religion and defend it in front of a panel. This is a transformational project for them. They go in as kids and they leave that project as young men and young women. My oldest son is a graduate of Hillsdale College, and he was an English major. In his first semester, in his sophomore year, he had 60 pages to write in 2 weeks' time. And so I asked him how he was. And he said, well, it's a lot, Mom. And I said, yes, are you okay? And he said, you know what? I can do it because I completed my thesis paper. Now, it was half the number of pages. He had 6 months to do it. But the point there is, and what I hear not only from him, but all of our graduates, is that when you ask students to do hard things, when you raise the bar, when you put that bar in tiptoes reach of them, and you believe that they can do it, and you walk alongside of them like little Sherpas and say, you can do it, I'll help you up Mount Everest. It is such a beautiful view from up there. So much better than keeping the bar down here. And I'll tell you what, when they get to the top, they know they've done something significant, and it builds them up to do anything that God has in store for them in their future. Our students deserve that kind of belief from you and from their teachers and encouragement to get there. So here's the backup of the slide of that ACT and SAT scores. The ACCS is the Association of Classical Christian Schools, and they've got a lot of great data there. What I love about the ACCS is that not only it's great that the kids get great test scores, but what they wanted to do is say, okay, by God's standards, how are these kids doing? So they did something called the Good Soil Study in conjunction with Notre Dame, and they asked students from a variety of different educational backgrounds, asked them about some key questions. And what they found is that classically educated students were more thankful, more hopeful, felt better prepared for college and career, were more successful in their eyes, were lifelong learners, committed to Jesus Christ and their church, courageous to stand up against the tide, and independent thinkers. So I would say that yes, this is a successful education model by both God's standards and the world's standards. This is also a type of model, even though it is an ancient form of education, it is perfect for the future. There are half of the jobs we won't even recognize 20 years from now, right? Half of them will be gone, new jobs will come that we cannot even anticipate. So how do we teach to that? Well, we certainly don't teach them trades, right? What we want to do is teach our students how to think critically, how to know what is good and true, how to ask the right questions, how to separate misinformation and disinformation, how to communicate winsomely, how to do really hard things and persevere, and understand the difference between what can be done and what should be done. That's how you educate a child for the future. So So you can do a classical education in a variety of models, right? You can classically homeschool your child. You can classically school your children 5 days a week in a traditional school. But Classical Roots is planning on doing a hybrid model, which is what we've done at Classical Consortium Academy. And let me tell you a little bit about what that is and the benefits. Students are full-time students. They're just part-time under this roof. And so it's the best of home and school. Students attend 2 days a week. They complete the work or homework that's generated from those 2 days at home under your supervision. It's really everything that you need as parents, giving you that peace of mind that your students are learning all that they need to learn, that they are being equipped, that there's some accountability and structure, that the best curriculum have been chosen for you. It's everything your kids want and need, having connections with other students, and honestly, almost equally as important, connection with other Christians, adults, who are enforcing what you're saying at home, right? Who are walking alongside your students. See, all of your children believe that you have to love them because you love them so much and are giving them a safe place. But what they realize when they get affirmed by people who don't have to love them, who pour into them, who don't have to love them, who even give them gentle rebuke, it means so much to them. So having those wonderful connections here are important to them. They are receiving that instruction and that engagement with other students. Some of the benefits of a hybrid model of education is that it allows quality family time. You might have a family where dad is working in the evenings or the weekends, and so family dinner is actually family breakfast. You can have time where siblings have sweet time together, and there's nothing better than cuddling up and reading on the couch together. It's affordable. In our area, private school education costs anywhere between $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, whereas this kind of education is a fraction of that. It's flexible, allowing students to participate in and enjoy other activities like music practice or athletic practice, or diving in deep on something, an educational pursuit that they have. Teaches students time management. When you actually get the flexibility of having a week to get your homework done, then you can't wait until the last minute. You have to figure out how to manage your time to get your work done each and every day. It provides that time to learn, or that rest to be able to sit with this important information. It fosters independent scholarship for your student, cultivates quality friendships. There's something really special about having limited time with your friends that truly grows beautiful quality friendships where iron truly sharpens iron. I could tell you stories for days about my wonderful kids in Barrington, Illinois. And it's better for all types of learners. If your student is gifted, well, they will be inspired with great things that they're learning here under this roof, and then you can have time and opportunity to foster other interests that they have outside of this place, because they're not waiting for a bunch of kids to get done with their work, right, while they're sped up and already done with it. Also, for the students who are challenged in some areas, you can sit and rest and have time with them so that they really can learn and get up to speed. It delivers truly the best of school and home. Linda, I would like to introduce Linda, who's the head of school, and she's going to talk to you about the uniqueness of this particular school model.
That's if I can get the mic on. Let's give this a try. Oh, I think we did. Boy, who doesn't love being the third person up to speak about right now when the third person are like, make it stop. So I can tell you that I really have no notes. from at a PowerPoint, because what I'm going to present to you tonight is really just from my heart. I would say about a year, 18 months ago, probably started during COVID, to be honest with you, and my grandkids and neighborhood kids and the moms in my neighborhood, I heard constant chatter about the dissatisfaction with how education was going. And it was not teachers' fault, it was not students' fault, but it made me really just drop back and say, how are we really educating our kids? And how are we propelling them for success? And how are we raising them to be very virtuous in their faith and to live a life that pleases the Lord? Ultimately, that's our goal in Scripture, is to do that. So this kind of comes from my heart. See, probably 18 months ago, I was at a wedding reception, and I sat across the table. I think it might have been somebody that got put directly in my path. And the whole wedding reception, we sat and talked the entire time about the state of school, state of education, raising virtuous kids, and homeschooling at that time. And I just, I know the Lord tucked that in my heart, and I mulled that over. Last summer, I happened to go to a conference down in Tampa, and they talked about hybrid schools. And not just hybrid schools, but hybrid classical Christian. When I was high school principal here in town, I would have one dad who was just awesome. He would come in every year, and he would make an appointment, and he was polite and kind and nice, and we would chit-chat a little, and he'd say, Linda, why don't we have classical Christian education here? And I would look at him every year, and I would say, well, what we have is working so well, we don't think there's a need for us to reboot or rechange. He would shrug his shoulders and say, okay. The truth of the matter really was, I didn't really know what classical Christian education was, so we couldn't really do battle or have much of an exchange. But when I went to this conference and heard one about what Jennifer talked about, the goals, the commitment of classical Christian education, I was like, why have I not known about this my whole education life that I've been in? Why am I so late to the ball game in this? And so that was powerful. But then when I went and heard about hybrid schools where there's a parenting statement, and we've all heard it, and I just think it's so true, is the days are long, the years are short. When you're raising kids, let's face it, you think they're never going to sleep the night, they're never going to whatever it is. But the bottom line is, when you get to be my age, they're gone. And they're gone, and you are calling for a rerun, and you don't get to do it again. So that kind of started it. I got connected with Jennifer through, I'm sure, God's hand of direction, and we became friends. I have been to her school, I think, a couple of times now. If you walk into the culture of the school, you say to yourself, this is where I want to have my kids. There is high calling, there's respect, there's, I think, just everything we want to put our kids into a school environment. So what I'm going to do right now is just kind of close this out, so I know I'm not going to talk forever, although I could about this. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about the slide that I have up here right now is, why is Classical Roots Christian School unique? And some of it you've heard, so think of this as kind of a recap a little bit as we go through this. It's being intentionally designed to be a hybrid school right out of the gate. So this isn't an add-on that we're doing. It's not something that's like, well, let's tweak it a little bit. I think the value, when I said the days are long, the days are long, the years are short, I wish that I had some days back with my kids, but also I would love to be able to have a partnership, a peer group that I could be educating. So we are starting out the grade. That is one of our distinctives that we don't plan to change. It makes 2 days on campus and allows 3 at home. Jennifer's already talked with you a little bit about that. So you have your release time if you don't want to be involved, and also if you want to be involved as a parent, there's an option there. I think it offers students and parents the best of both worlds. You know, you get to be homeschooled, spend time with transition your child to where you want them to be in life, and yet at the same time they get a peer group. And the last statement there is one that I read in a book, and I just love it, and that is that Classical Roots Christian School is going to be committed to working with and for parents. It's going to be a partnership right out of the gate. I would tell parents when I was an administrator, I'd say, you know, I get to have your child 9 months a year. So my opinion does matter, but you get to have them for a lifetime. And because because you get to have them for a lifetime. We really have to figure out how we can communicate and work together. So I think I'm the one that has to advance this. I better stay pretty close. Some other benefits of enrolling is Jennifer's talked about that it's classical Christian curriculum and it's been tested. Jennifer's been doing it 18, 20 years. Her test results are great. So this is not something we just said, oop-de-doo, let's throw the school together. This has really been in the planning, not long enough when I stay up at night and work, but long enough that I think it's very, very dependable and reliable. It's got proven curriculum we've talked about here. We're going to be really committed, and I'm not sure exactly what this means because there's a budget side to this too, but we really intentionally want to keep our class size small. For kindergarten, first and second, we'd love to keep it down to teens, 16, 18. We know, having been a teacher, I know this out there, it says class size doesn't make a difference in instruction. I'm going to tell you that that's not true. When I had a class and I had 16, 18 students, I could meet with them every single day. I knew where they were each individually. I knew what they were good at and I knew what they weren't so good at. So I knew how to build great foundations and I knew how to pull them up a little bit. Class size will be significant, one of our factors we'll do here. 2 days on campus for instruction. And the difference is this is classical education when you go to the College of Education. I am not a math science person. I passed that in college, but I don't linger there very long. I love reading, I love writing, I love speaking, I love that part of the language process. Here we're going to hire staff that are going to be teaching in their passion area. If you take somebody who loves math, again, that's not me, teaching math and figuring out math is like a jigsaw puzzle, and they love it. And that's who we want our students to be taught with, is somebody who's not teaching it for the curriculum for the day, but really just loves math. Same thing with science. So that will be a little different. And the last one, I think, we've already spoken about it a couple of times, but I couldn't speak with you and not talk about it, is we are going to be committed to intentionally training faith-based children. That's not an add-on, it's not a class, it's not a chapel that we're going to go to. From what Jennifer's told you a little bit, that is the whole basis of this classical Christian, is it is going to be woven through their entire day, regardless of whether we're teaching a subject, or hanging out in the halls, or we're working through some discipline issues. That will be the very foundation of our school. More benefits, because of course one slide was not near enough for the benefits. It's got formal documentation and record keeping. If you're doing homeschooling, and I have a lot of friends who are either doing it or have done it, it's the tedious keeping their curriculum, what they've done, what classes have they taken. Not so terribly much in kindergarten when you have crayons 101 or coloring 204. But when you start getting up, we will keep a computerized record of everything. So when your child does go to college, does need to move on with some type of education, we will be able to provide documentation so that when they go through the acceptance policy or at a college or a second-year school, then we'll be able to help you with that. The second thing there too is, I think we've all said that about, we want our kids to have great peers to grow up with, have great values that are complementary. What was the statement? It takes a village to raise a child. Yeah, it's an African proverb, but I want to know who's in my village. I want my village to be survived with the same people that have similar values. I don't want, there's enough out there already taking away what I'm trying to tell them. So it will be a consistent peer group for your students here when they're on campus. And I didn't really put it in the slides, but same for you as a parent. You'll have some consistency with other parents as you raise your kids. Don't worry, we're going to be done here soon. We're going to do formal grading from 3rd grade and up. Kindergarten, 1st and 2nd will be much more. I always had a hard time. I taught kindergarten, I taught 1st, I taught 2nd, I taught 6th. In 6th grade, I knew how to get you a 92. But you got a 92 on that paper, good job. Yeah, 67, I'm sorry about that. In kindergarten, it was smile faces and sad faces and -2, just so hard to quantitatively put grades together. So for kindergarten, first and second, we will be working with that partnership with parents. We will be working together and we will both be giving a lot of feedback, a lot of stickers, a lot of challenges, a lot of individualization to get our students where they need to be. I gave you a sheet there. It's very informal. It's really not a very good job. If you picked it up, one of the sheets in here, this could not be a more simple pattern, but one of the things that we're going to do for you at Classical Roots Christian School is you'll get your 2 days of instruction canvas. You'll also get an assignment sheet that'll have all the subjects that your student's doing, and we will paste the assignments all week for you. So at the end of the week, all you need to be is done. For the younger students, kindergarten, first and second, they won't be getting graded papers, but for the older ones, they will be, and we'll be putting those in the computer and helping you figure out statistically exactly where your student is. So this is kind of a sample of what, this is actually a grammar, like a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade sheet, what one would look like. So as a parent, you have your curriculum chosen, and it's dependable and reliable, and it's been test driven. You have your pacing guide that will get you from the first day of school to the last day of school. And then you have the adaptability. You can adapt this. If you want to take Thursday off because you want to go someplace, then you can take Thursday's assignments and can shuffle them around a little bit. So that's one of the things. You're not just sending your students 2 days a week and then you're on your own the other 3. We'll be partnering together, we'll be working together, we'll be planning together for your students' education. So that you'll be getting the pacing guide every week. You'll get one emailed out to you. Jennifer does hers on Saturday night, so I'm not sure if we'll do something like that, but over the weekend, you'll get your next week assignment sheet emailed out to you. And then last one you have in your packet there, you have this is Way We Believe. I've laid out the school year thus far. It's your last page in your packet, but shows you the weeks that we're going to have. We're going to work our way through the school with classes on Monday and Wednesday. We're going to have 4 enrichment weeks. Obviously, we have some weeks when there's a holiday on Monday, and your students are probably not going to want to come here on Labor Day or President's Day when the whole world is not at school. So those weeks we will have assignments for home for you to catch up with. We'll work together, but they just won't come to campus those 4 weeks. So kind of a little bit of a respite and break in your schedule too for both mom and students. Our future commitment. If I was sitting where you're sitting, I'd say, yeah, Linda, this all sounds good, but what happens if I send my child to 1st grade or kindergarten or 2nd grade and you're not around? What is high school? What is middle school? I can tell you that I'm as passionate as Caleb is passionate, that once we start this, we have no option but moving forward. We have no option but every year. At the least, next year, right now, we're going to start with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. We call that the primary school, so we'll start with those, and we're going to tack on 3rd and 4th, which gets us into the grammar program, a classical version. And then next year, my goal, Lord willing, is we're going to tackle 5th and 6th. So next year, the year after next, we are going to be all the way through primary and all the way through grammar. And then, Lord willing, and the creek doesn't rise, we will add the logic level, the middle school, and then we will start going. I'll tell you, the high school part is the one that probably motivates me the most. When I visited Jennifer's school and to see what they are able to do relationally and academically in the school. I know the first day that I went, I just kind of went to kick the tires around. Let's go see what it's like. I don't know anything about this. And I found myself driving home in rush hour traffic through Chicago thinking, man, that was worth every second that I was there. And that would be the environment in the school that I would love to have for my children. So it's our commitment. I'm standing before you tonight saying, Lord willing, we have no intention of just trying this out, trying it for a year or 2 and seeing where it goes. I think Caleb and I and the school board, we all feel called enough of the Lord that we will see this through to the best of our ability unless something significant would happen. Tuition and fees, that's probably your next question you have is, what's this going to cost? We're starting a school with basically a goose egg of funding. So we have really no money at all that's starting us out, except we have a big faith that God's calling us to do this. And you know what? Every time in my life that God's called me to do something, He has provided for me. Even when it seemed crazy, He has, over my years of life, has been very good and very faithful to me. So what I'm going to go over right now is the tuition and fees, because you'll want to know that. Our tuition and fees for a student is going to be $2,200 for a year. That would be per student, and we have built in a multi-student discount for the first, I think, 3 students that we have. And we don't want money. We're not running the school to have any profit margin. It's a break even. In the first year, I will be abundantly thankful. That's my goal. We're just trying to cover our expenses. You have the startup, you have salaries, you have everything. So that's all we're trying to do in this first year. Is if I end up with not a penny in the bank at the end of the year, I will think that that was money just really well spent. So, but we don't want money to keep anybody away from. Every time that I've had a need, and I've brought it before the Lord, and I've had many of those in my life, I have been amazed at how God has provided, and I've seen His hand of protection and His hand of provision in my life over and over and over. We're going to do this right now. We're trying to keep going, so it's 7:45. We're going to take like a 5-minute break, because some of you probably have sitters, and maybe you need to get out. But I think the most important thing we're going to do right now is just answer your questions. So Kayla and the school board is going to come. Let's take 3 to 5 minutes. We have a mic. We're going to put the mic
I'm going to put it right back there. But before she lets you go, we've learned lesson 1, make your PowerPoint bigger. So if you want a copy of that, pull out your phone, and I'd like you to text your email address to a number. Can you pull this one down, because that's getting feedback. Blue, just pull that down there a little bit. So pull out your phone, if you've got a phone, and you'd like to have a copy of what you have tonight, as well as there's copies of, if you want the paperwork on what you grabbed on your way in. The phone number is 260-278-0963. Give it to you one more time. 260-278-0963. If you text your email address to that number, we will get you a copy of the slides tonight, as well as the documents that you grabbed coming in. And then I have 2 more things before they get a quick break. There is an application on the website right now, so if you're interested in what you've heard and you'd like to go ahead and do that, you can go search Classical Readers Christian School. You'll find the application on the website. Secondly, Jennifer, is Jennifer still in the room? She's up there. Hey, you probably don't quite realize how generous she's been to be here. 1, she drove here from Illinois, but 2, she gave us all the paperwork that their school uses, all of the pacing that they use, all of the curriculum. Here you go. She said, here, we want you to succeed. We want you to be able to do what we've been doing for 20 years. We would have been just frantically searching, how do we do that? I don't know. You know how we do that? I don't know what we're doing. And so if you would, just give her a round of applause and say thank you to her. 3 quick minutes, and then we'll come back. If you need to go do sitters, that's great. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Yep, we'll see you. We're going to keep this moving, because I know it's a weekday night, but we'll keep it moving, and we'll be ready to start in about 3 or 4 minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, hey, thanks. Again, if you need to leave at any time during this, please feel free to go ahead and just dismiss yourself. There's a microphone right here in the middle if you want to ask a question. If you want to, I don't know, pin Caleb down on something crazy that he said, feel free to go ahead and do that. There you go, Nate. I appreciate that. You go for it. Anybody up here, any questions, anything?
Yeah, okay, go. Yeah, I think I just have 2 questions. Do you take American Express?
I'll leave home without it.
Okay, all right. Well, actually I have 3, so where do we sign up?
Classical Roots Christian School dot.
Okay. And,
Reddit Road.
what?
It's Reddit. You can apply right now.
Oh, we
Got
can
the
do it.
application together.
Okay. My wife wanted to know if you guys already selected teachers.
We are just in the process. In fact, I have an interview tomorrow. So as the word is getting out that we're starting this school up, I am getting contacted by people. So if you know somebody who would thrive well in this type of an environment, if you're sending your children, there's no reason why you can't work here part of the time. It's not a requirement. We're not a co-op where you have to serve here. But if you have a professional educational skill, that would be great for our school. We'd love to talk with you.
And that application is on the website.
Yeah, the application. So there's an application, let's just do that really fast. There's an application for primary. You'll see primary application. And that is kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. And then you'll see one for grammar, which is 3rd and 4th grade. And then one says application for employment. I think it says or teaching. So they're all there.
How does it work with bringing an older student in who hasn't used this method of education? So like when you expand to junior high school, but they weren't learning Latin in primary school, how does that work for them?
Hello. So the reality is that this type of education will educate your children out of going back to the public school because they'll be advanced, which then means students coming in at that higher grades, there is a steeper learning curve. But there are things that I'm sure the school will build in to make sure that students are ready for that particular grade. And so in our school, what we have is something called a scholars program where students who are older will tutor younger students to help get them up and running. And so that's a wonderful leadership opportunity for them, and it really helps the students coming in. So.
Angie, you have one job to do. You have one job. Pay attention to the mic when it feeds back, and you can't do it. Okay.
So I have a few questions. The first one is simple. Are you capping enrollment at a certain number of students for this year?
We are doing this. We are having what we consider a full class size and a maximum size. So we will go up to a given number and consider that class full. However, if there is a family who came that had, let's say, 5 students, and we can get them all into a moment. It's hard to do when you're doing kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I realize that it could have been really productive. So then we will take a look at it, but we won't go past our capacity. And we are right now, I think as a board, we have kind of, and we're kind of praying about what would be the maximum amount. Right now, we're thinking in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, we would be in the teens, and maybe when we get into 3rd and 4th, maybe we'd go to 20.
Per class.
Per class, yeah.
Okay. The other question is about your vision for including farming and in the later grades, and then that also ties in with the school lunches. What are we feeding these kids? And how is the vision for farming? Do you have any more details to share about
Yeah, so the farm right now is 5 acres in Albion, Indiana. We're producing produce right now only. We're partnered with another farm to bring protein. So that's like your meat, eggs, and honey. The goal, I would love to completely change how school lunches and how children are fed. I will be honest with you, this is a point of contention with me here at this church. They're fed garbage here at this church. And it's not, that's mean, I know my dad's back, he's not happy. It's because of cost. We have put value of cost over value of quality. And we've done that for enough time. That is one of the things that I want to change. So my goal for the farm is to be able to bring enough food for a portion of the patients at my office who are interested in it. The future goal for the farm is to be able to provide food for all of the patients at my office and the entire school. That would be my long-term goal. And I would like the children to be as involved in that process as possible. I want children that go to the school, I want to hire them. I want to hire them as new farmers. I want to hire them in multiple places in the business endeavors that I have. Is that good, Kate?
The short-term answer is they will pack a lunch.
In the beginning, they will have to pack a lunch. Until we have a kitchen, we can't do hot lunches here. It's on the goal.
Although we are planning an occasional pizza day, so it won't be that bad. Healthy pizza, yes.
Okay, I have like 4 questions, sorry. One, kind of going off of the food question, like our daughter has an anaphylactic allergy, so just wondering if there be like a nurse on campus at all, or just general safety. Kind of you're downtown, so kind of those parent concerns.
Yeah, right now, again, because it's a startup, we don't have a nurse in our budget. So that's clearly, I have a laundry list of the little things like that we're gonna have to clean up. So it doesn't matter if it's your daughter with an allergy or something like that. We're gonna have to have a medical front that we'll go to. And I think some of that's gonna be who Scott's gonna send to us. He may well send us somebody who is an RN who can teach science. So going back to what Jennifer said, I really am just a very faith-based person. I think God is going to provide those people for us. So not blowing off your question because it's very important, but we don't have a nurse in our budget right now.
But the plan would be to add one eventually, or someone medical.
Say that again, please.
You're saying eventually, though, there would be someone.
I think especially as the school grows, if we are full this fall, we'll have, I think it's 86 students. That's a pretty good size, and we're going to start with whatever the Lord sends us. But as we get more and more students, we will definitely open up dollars and probably do something. We're only here 2 days a week. So it's not, I have to hire somebody 5 days a week. And school nurse jobs are very sought after. So.
And security.
Oh, security, yeah. We have worked, the church has been great. They've already installed a door. The first time when I brought school security to the school that I was at, because everybody was used to just running in and out of every door everywhere, I met with the school board and said, okay, you guys are going to stand behind me because the phone's going to ring off the hook because moms can't get in to drop off lunches and they can't drop off gym equipment and everything. So the rainy days are not going to be pleasant around here. Boy, was I wrong. I had never had a complaint about our security, but when we added locked doors and protocols and people had to get buzzed to get in offices and everything, I just had parents come out of the woodwork that said thank you. So for right now, as we're starting this up, I will tell you that I fully realize that school security is a very important topic. And I would also say the church feels the same way about children and their children's area. They take it seriously. They've installed a door that would make it so we will lock down this. We'll start in the morning, we'll lock down the school, and we won't have people coming in and out without getting scanned. So the school may be going on, the church might be using this room for something, but we'll have the children's area locked down. we're going to start taking applications, and then we're going to start doing, there's an interview process where we'll meet the parents will meet us, we'll have a good, honest, every time I've met with a parent, I've been like, the next hour, maybe one of the most important hours we're going to have, because we're deciding a whole year of your student's life, not just education, but who they're going to shape. So we'll have an entrance, call it an exam, I call it an enrollment assessment. We'll look and see what should your child, if they're coming in at 3rd grade or 1st grade or kindergarten, what skills should they be able to do? And what skills can your child? And we'll just have an open, is this the right place? If they finish 2nd but they can't read a paragraph, should we consider putting them in primary 2 back? So that will be that's just a really important hour that we get together and then we both separate. Sometimes it's just clear as a bell. Well, this person is the perfect family for our school. And sometimes I have encouraged families, this is a really big decision. Let's step away from this for a little while. You go home, talk about it, pray about it, and we'll do the same and we'll figure it out. And I know that's not the most clear answer, but when you deal with individuals, there isn't always one clear. So hope that's satisfactory.
Yeah. And then we talked a lot about the structure of the school and the pacing of it. I'm just curious though, can you speak more to the curriculum itself? Are you pulling from certain resources?
So the curriculum is curated from the best publishers out there, as well as some curriculum that was created by us. It was really important to me that we found the very best to use, so we pull from Classical Academic Press, Veritas Press, Logos, as well as some things that we've created ourselves. And when we wanted to pick the best curriculum, we meant best in 2 ways. One is the quality of the curriculum and what it's teaching, but also that it's good in this model where we can easily partner with families using this curriculum. And so it does both of those things. And this is one of the things that I can help with, because we tried a lot of curricula that wasn't a good fit. And so we've landed here with really, really good curricula to use.
And then, is there any outdoor, anything built into the day when they're here, or free time built in?
So my original piece of paper, where I had written down what I wanted the school to be, almost like line 2, I had written down, children will be taught outside as much as possible. I don't know how we're going to do that yet. We're trying to figure that out, especially the security problem, right? So this is a large campus. People can walk through it at any time. But it's part of the discussions we're having as a board, the intangible parts of an education of a child that we don't typically think about, like school lunch, like being outside, like getting up out of a desk and moving around. Those things are part of what we're trying to solve here. I don't have all those answers yet, but man, if we can teach them outside, I want them to taught outside. So we're going to try to figure out how to do that.
And also add, the beauty of a hybrid model is that they're here 2 days a week, and then you can teach your child outside. They can read in a tree if they provide. You can go on nature hikes, you can do those things, and that's one of the beautiful parts of it, is that, yes, these are concentrated learning days, but then we've got so much flexibility in the rest of the week.
Well, I'll have a 5-year-old, and just, it's a long day, so I'm curious to know how you break up that day. The traditional school would have recess, so are there breaks built in?
There is recess. Sorry.
Yeah, there is recess that we partnered with lunch that's already built in. But then we will go ahead and hire our staff, and then it's staff, let's say it's for a kindergarten teacher. Thankfully, that kindergarten 1st and 2nd are where I taught the majority of my years. We will sit down and kind of to get a schedule going that, yeah, they need to come up for air a lot. You can teach them and then you come up for air. So the one thing is Headwaters has a beautiful building. We have an indoor gym, we have space. So yeah, things I have in my brain is could we have an activity room? I'm not saying a go wild room, but just a place where it's a large, the last school I was at, we built a large motor room. So we're not gonna build that here, but I'm well aware of the fact that, especially if you're a boy, down in kindergarten first, you are going to need to move appropriately. Because if you don't give them something appropriate to do, they're going to find something on their own, which is not nearly as appropriate. So, yeah, we will build that whole structure of the day around what a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old would typically need.
I'm short. Can you talk more about what, like a day or the teaching portion would be like for like the early years, the primary, especially kindergarten? And then like what does homework look like for that kindergarten?
The day is broken up with lots of hands-on activities for little ones with the understanding that they need time to get air. But they're being instructed in phonics and reading and spelling and writing, basic shapes and numbers, skip counting, all of those sorts of things. Within that structure of the day, using a lot of manipulatives, they are learning art and music as well, and lots of breaks for quiet reading and things like that. So I don't know the specific structure of how kindergarten is going to happen here, but that's how our day works. They've got Bible time, they've got time where they are looking at the calendar and talking about the weather and those sorts of things that the traditional kindergarten students are doing. It is a phonics-based reading program, and so kindergartners are expected by the end of the year to recognize all of the letters, know all of the sounds, and even blends. And so they're really getting that strong foundation of reading and writing, learning properly how to hold a pencil. And so all of the basic mechanics that kindergartners need in order to have that strong foundation of learning.
And like, so what does that, because my understanding what you said for the like homework during the week.
Yes, I'm sorry. So the homework spreadsheet, do you have a copy of that? Or was it
I gave them a blank one so they could see how it would come, but they don't have like kindergarten or first grade.
Oh, okay. So on the homework spreadsheet, you would get the other 4 days out of the week actually on this things to do list. And it spells out reading with your child and what pages to read on a particular book that was chosen. It will say kind of what pages to follow in your reading, writing book. And so it's all spelled out on this things to do list that it'll take you and your child a couple of hours each day to do together in kindergarten. And that can be broken up then throughout the day.
We're all tired, I know. So I'll try to keep it to 2 minutes, right? Like the last 10 times I addressed the board. It's not a massive speech. So this is my family up front here. Very studious, beautiful people who are semi-tech addicted. We're ready. We've been doing 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. carpool days at Lakewood Park. So you can imagine how exhausting that can be. So when I heard Linda was part of this, I was excited. Excellent information. I want to get that live stream to a lot of friends and family, Jenny. And then Luke just got to know you through the podcast. So I would just want to tell the parents, if we hit the lowest bar for this first year, you know your kids are going to be so better off than what we're doing now, right? Like if we hit no goals, we will be way better. Have you been to a kindergarten event lately, right? Okay, kids, sit in a row. Here's the 8 lines you're going to sing. The parents are going to go back to their day jobs and eat a cookie from GFS. Like, we will be light years ahead if we fail. So, like, mama bears, just chill. Also, on a serious note, I would say, so we're ready. So I have a 6-year-old on the laptop, and it's no small thing to say, I taught him to read and write from nothing. And so that school year was interrupted by a tragic car accident in our family. And so we were somewhat disappointed and somewhat relieved to get the break to go to, Lakewood Park. But I'm ready. I'm ready for middle school and beyond. So like we're looking to be like parent partners. And one day big donors, one day just partnership and teaching. And my wife's passion is through it. I'm just gonna say it. She's like, I want to be in the cafeteria. I'm done babysitting the Spanish class, checking the state boxes and counseling these children from broken homes. I just want to make food. That's her repertoire. Me, I love literature. This guy put like 8 packets of honey on his chicken over at Lee's on the way in. So you got your food, you can bale hay. What do you need, right? But on a serious note, we're ready. We want to help expand it. And I would also add, if you're from Chicago, what suburb, what part of Illinois is your school from?
So an hour northwest of the city,
Okay.
in Barrington, Illinois.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Chesterton Academy out in Milwaukee?
Milwaukee?
So the Catholics are crusading right now. The Chesterton Academy, they plan to launch that in 2024 here in Fort Wayne. I would just encourage the board, reach out, get to know what they're doing. Just if there's any chance for open dialogue on how we can overlap, possibly crossfire.
And I have talked with them. I talked with the person that's organizing it here. We've had only telephone conversations at this point, but yeah, we don't own anything. We want to spread this out. We want to, as Jennifer has been nothing, the school would not be happening this fall if it wasn't for Jennifer and God laying it on her heart that she was going to share what he gave her. And so that's our desire too, is we want to be the best. I mean, you talked about even if we fail this year, that's really not an option.
And want to clarify, when I say fail, I mean, we all have this high standard.
Yeah.
If we don't reach our highest goal, we will be better off. So
We will want to partner with other people in the area, so yeah, we're very committed to that.
well, I look forward to meeting individually, you guys, but if I don't ever meet you, Jen, that was exceptional. I want that link. See me after. I want to connect. And yes, please save us from Lakewood Park State School, please. We're so ready.
Thanks everybody for the presentation today. One question I had was the emphasis on Latin. The explanations made sense to me, but because of the focus on this also being a Christian school, will foreign languages include dead languages like Koine Greek or ancient Hebrew? Or is that part of the seminary long-term goal?
So at our school, we only teach Latin, and then when they went to high school, we teach Spanish. But we won't be more ambitious than that.
And I discussed that with some other people that, thinking about that whole theology end of it. And the person said, Linda, this is the way it is. Teach them Latin, which will be your base. It's like teaching the first pilot to learn how to fly the first plane. And then everything that you add on to it, when you go to another plane, you just have to. I think I've become convinced because at the beginning we weren't sure if we were going to do Latin, that it is a great foundational language to understand other languages. So we're not even to middle school or high school. But I think that's one of the things we're going to be really committed to, Aaron, to you know, where's God going to take the school? We want it to bring Him honor and glory, and possibly that's a path. I don't see it right now, but I would certainly never say no to that.
Verily, verily. Thank you.
One of the things that the school board is going to do is every summer we will be reviewing our curriculum. If God hands us an amazing Hebrew teacher, why would we not? Great. Why would we not put them in? So we are going to be rigid yet flexible in many ways.
Thank you guys, first of all, for this tonight. It was a real pleasure for my wife and I to listen, and we were very impressed with how well prepared all of this was. Also, I just want to thank you for your own sacrifice personally, and for your focus on glorifying God. That first and foremost matters to what I do a lot. It's really great. What else? I was looking through the website, and I started looking at some of the curriculum you referenced, and I really had fun looking through the Apology of Science curriculum, and I noticed in their statement of faith they include a specific phrase about how the Lord created the world in 6 days out of nothing, and I really liked to see that. That was really encouraging because my wife and I believe that's an important part of our children's education. I also noticed that it wasn't in the school statement of faith. I just wanted to ask if that was something you guys would be teaching in the classrooms in other subjects other than science, like in history, in the Bible, and all those other subjects.
So you're asking about 6-day creation specifically?
The statement of faith in Apologia is that God created the earth in 6 days out of nothing.
We will definitely have, and it sounds like for your family, that is clearly a distinctive. And I'm going to let Luke hop in here on the end of it. So I'm going to do the school end of it, and he's going to do the theological, so he can end it up there. But we will definitely have things that we will be non-negotiable on. And it sounds like for you that is a non-negotiable. And I would never walk against that or speak against that. For a different family, it might be foot washing. It might be something different. So it's not like we're going to be all things to all people, because we're not. But there will be some things like that when they come up that we will send back to the home. Actually, both my boys grew up in a Christian school from kindergarten to high school, and we welcomed times when we possibly didn't agree 100%, not on fundamental things, because it gave us great to say, okay, here's what your teacher's teaching you about. But here's where we're at. And we felt like it really tightened our relationship and strengthened their faith to have open dialogue. So I don't know if that's really a good answer, but it's the answer that we have for right now, and then Luke can build on that.
Yeah, so the way that we phrased it is that the school is going to take positions on primary question, or doctrines of primary Christian agreement. So, and yeah, Hunter, you and I know, I've had this conversation around here, kitchen people, or mine, whichever one, or maybe both. So there are going to be things that we say, we believe, like this is a Christian school unapologetically, no problem. We're for instance, we're not going to budge on the doctrine of the Trinity or the deity of Christ. Down the inerrancy of Scripture, we're going to say this is our position. That being said, there on a lot of issues there's room for disagreement within the Christian faith. So, age of the earth is something that, particularly if you look historically, is not something that the church is going to divide over. I know our context.
I didn't mean to get into theology.
I know you didn't.
I was curious if this is what the science statement of faith was saying was going to transfer over into the history and Bible.
What I'm trying to get at, and maybe I'm long-winded, you are welcome to come to school here if you take an older view. And the school is not going to say you're wrong and heretical for that. You're welcome to come to school here if you have a young earth view. And that's not going to be, in the same way that I would say, I want somebody a Presbyterian who baptizes babies to be able to come to school here with a Baptist who only baptizes believers. And that's going to be one of those things that I'm going to be able to disagree with somebody and be in Christian fellowship with at this level. Probably not at a local church level, but at a school level, I think we can do that.
question, and we encourage debate as the kids get older. So yes, the apology is a New Earth perspective, and we have, in our school, we've got a similar statement of faith. And if a student, we teach that as true, so that the teacher will go to bat for that particular, the state director position. However, as they get older, we encourage debate between the students and want that to happen in junior high and high school.
Yeah, I had a junior high class that was about evolution at a Christian school. Very, very foundational.
So we actually look and relish the opportunities for those kinds of debates, because especially when you're in a homogeneous sort of environment, you want them to disagree so that you can teach them how to disagree winsomely and well and respectfully.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Andrea. Thank you so much for the information today. I think I have a few just quicker questions. So when will the students be wearing uniforms?
We do have a uniform policy. We're gonna wear with khaki pants and dark pants, whatever.
Maybe your black pants and then maybe a white shirt, or a polo or
Okay, great. And then I know in Indiana there's, I think it's 180 days you have to be in school. And I'm just curious, I know they still hybrid school exist. How does that work with tracking that when you're in school 2 days? Do we track that we're also doing the days outside, or how do you ensure you meet that requirement?
What I'm planning to do is at the end of the year, give you some kind of an affidavit that, you know, that we met this many days and have your students, maybe attendance on there, but we will document the days that we're doing here and have you supplement that.
Okay. And then what's your plan for use of computers with the students?
So we encourage our students to have actual paper and pencil and books as much as possible. We think that's really important. But there are some students who prefer a Kindle, so for us, and some students need audiobooks, and so for us, we haven't made that a problem. That's something that they use at home. For our school, in the school, our students don't use computers. They're taking notes with paper and pencil. I think that's a really good skill to learn. Then, of course, they do have work to do at home on the computer. We ask all of our students to type their papers, for example, and they have to do some research on the computer. So I would say we have this kind of moderate view of technology, try to use it for good, but not in excess.
And then my last question is, I have a friend who goes to a school like this in Indianapolis, and as part of their parent training, they have like conference days with their parents to kind of go through what, you know, all the parents collaborate at once and what that's going to look like and what your expectations are. I know you mentioned the email that you sent, so is it kind of both of those things, or is it just that you feel, what's the prep of the parent, like helping equip the parents to appropriately employ the techniques with their students?
So at the orientation the week before school starts, there will be orientation for parents, and they get to meet teachers, and the teachers will go through the expectation for every class. So you have an idea of what the purpose is for that class and what the expectation is.
Thank you all so much.
Hi, really nice. So you mentioned having teachers that are passionate about what they do for the subjects. So does that mean that the kids are going to be going from class to class to class to class for the subject, or are they going to be with one teacher who knows that well and teaches them?
Yeah, the model that we've put together with kindergarten would pretty much stay self-contained, first grade, second grade, but we might rotate instructors in and out of that room. But I think for the security, for the peer development, for the oneness of creating that unit, they will stay together. Now, third and fourth and all the way up, they will definitely have more of a college campus type of feel. They'll have a homeroom that they'll go to. That's where on Monday we'll all go to chapel, but on Wednesday we'll do devotions, prayer in our homeroom, and then they will rotate. I don't imagine we'll rotate teachers of the older grades, we'll just rotate students. They need to move every 45 minutes.
Questions too. Will there be requirements, like will each teacher have to be education trained, or probably that will have? I'm not a teacher, I'm in the school,
So, no, teachers do not need to be trained teachers. In our school, we have about half of the teachers who are certified teachers. But to be very honest with you, our very best teachers have come from our parent population, people who have majored in biology or had in their previous life, in their career, they had a specific skill. And they love kids and they are invested in the school. I'll tell you, our most challenging hires have been the 30 years in teacher who's retired, because honestly, it's hard to then be in partnership with parents, because that's not the typical structure of a government school, as well as this hybrid, only teaching 1 or 2 days a week. That's tough for someone to wrap their head around. So it hasn't needed to be a requirement, and our children are getting excellent education.
So I was in school growing up, not in a classical traditional way. Can you speak to just how teaching classically, I guess, affects like the science and math and those types of things? Is it less focused on the literature or that kind of stuff? Just how that comes into play.
So it is a full curriculum, but yes, the classical education by nature is more humanities focused. But our students, I can tell you, are well prepared in both science and math. And we have students graduating our program, majoring in and going into careers that are everything from teaching and ministry to medicine and engineering. And so they're well prepared in that. So it is a full curriculum of math, including math and science.
And then is there going to be, I did hear like there's going to be like an interview type process with the parents and students. How will that be handled, since this is an apologetically Christian school? How will documents be made with, I hate to use the word like vetting, but like who are my and what do they figure out?
That's a discussion that we had at the school board level early on, because I think it's such an important question. We did come up as a school board, and we plan to live by it, is that one of the parents in the home has got to be a believer and has got to really sign that they theologically agree with our basics of faith. So I know that some people love that, some people hate that, but hey, you have to be who you are, so that's who we are.
What are those things theologically that will not be that, like faith-wise? Specifically, I guess, homosexuality, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we don't have that type of granular cultural issues addressed. It's going to be a very, if you look at like a systematic theology textbook, so it's going to be the Trinity, it's going to be the person of Christ, it's going to be the inerrancy of Scripture, it's going to be a theological look at anthropology, so sin nature. It's going to be questions about justification and sanctification by the grace of God alone. Now, there's a full list of it on the website if you want to go through it point by point on our statement of faith. But it's that type of thing. It's not as granular in the, here's what our calling homosexuality, for instance. We don't get into the details on that sort of thing. Those typically don't show up on doctrinal statements. It's hard. You can't stay ahead of it. It's always shifting, and so if you try to give your doctrinal statement to address the culture, you turn around and 5 minutes later you have to like add 3 more points, and it's a never-ending game. So you go through and say, this is the grounding of the Christian faith. We're working from this foundation, and if you have specific questions on that, you can send an email. I'll be happy to try to address them.
No, that's very well done.
There will also be a statement of faith that the parents would sign, and that these things will actually be, if you want your child to be in our school, at least one parent would have to sign this statement of faith, and a lot of those doctrines are on there. One of the coolest parts that I have learned about the classical education model is that really in the beginning you're trying to teach the who, what, why, the answers of all of these foundational questions. So you don't get really into the weeds on something like homosexuality. You're really treating or teaching virtue. And that, from there, you will be able to expound on these much more nuanced cultural issues, because we're hanging our hat on that foundation, and we're doing that with our parents and with our students, which I think is just bonkers cool when I read that out of the group. Yeah.
Just one question. It's been hinted at as you guys have talked tonight, but just parent engagement on like Monday and Wednesday outside of teaching here, is what that would look like, or what the ideas are. What to expect.
Yeah, I think if a parent wants to be involved, first we'd start and, interview them and figure out what their educational set would be, their degree or something would be in. But we have to, if we could have parents, we want to be the best tenant that this church has ever had. So they are gracious to allow us to be here. So I would never turn away hands that would maybe help at lunch or help at recess, or at the end of the day, we as a school board would love to see our parents own this building too. We're just guests in here for the day, so leave it better than we found it. So yeah, it's not just the teaching, and we really want to partner together. And I'm excited, we're going to ask our students to do some things at the end of the day. I think it's just great training to have our students wipe their tables and clean their room. My goal is to leave their room better every time.
Were you asking for parent involvement the other days of the week at home with your child?
Specifically on Monday and Wednesday. And just with reference, I was curious what all that would look like outside of teaching.
It won't be required, but we'll certainly want to partner if there's a willingness.
Are physical clothes covered in
They are, but one of the beauties of the curriculum and how it works, almost all of it is reused. There's not, what's the term? Non-consumable, thank you. Most of it is, you're actually buying, give me an example of one of your books. What do you I don't know, you're buying Common Sense by Thomas Paine, and like it's a book. And if one kid uses it in Grammar 3, the next kid's gonna use it in Grammar 3. Thomas Paine in Grammar 3 is probably a little, that's not really lining up, but something to that effect. They're really advanced.
What is the cutoff for kindergarten? Like is 4 too young?
We're going to follow the state rule. I think it's August 1, it's off the top of my head, but that's what we're going to do.
Five by August 1.
5 by August 1, yeah. Our curriculum will be aggressive, and so we don't want to get students and we want to put them at a development level that would likely be successful for them. I think, go ahead.
And then what about students with special needs?
If we would have to go ahead, and if they have an IEP or they have something like that, again, in the interview, we would sit down, we would ask the parent to bring the IEP, we'd sit down, we'd read through it, because there would be IEPs we could certainly honor, and there would be IEPs that we wouldn't. I've always said as an administrator, there's honor in knowing who you can serve and who you can't. So if you were to send your student, it would not be that we would have a heart or a love for them, but if I can't meet their needs, then I think there's little honor in accepting that student. So I hope that's a good answer for you.
Thank you.
Let's have this be our last question, because I think the night's starting to get long, but we will stay after. If you have questions, we'll stay after for a little while and answer.
I have 2 questions.
Okay, we'll go 2.
Actually, I have 3. First off, real quick, for Jen, you said that they start learning Spanish in high school. Do they stop Latin at that point?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. My 4 kids are in classical conversations right now. The parents are required to be more involved, kind of like a tutoring course for them so that they can learn how to teach their children at home. Is that capable? Is that plausible at all, or in a sense?
Well, so I can tell you how we're different from classical conversations. So it's following the same philosophy of education, obviously. But what you'll see here is far more structure, and where classical conversation puts a lot on your shoulders as a parent to fill in a lot of gaps yourself, we're doing all of that for you.
No, they do have the homework at home, though, so is that kind of, is it going to be pretty simple for us as parents?
Yes, so it's going to be very clear to you what it is you need to facilitate your students getting done. You're not needing to do a bunch of extra work of trying to find something for them to do or find a book that reinforces what it is that is learned. So there's the accountability and structure, the grades, the things that classical conversations doesn't provide for you. So if you're enjoying that, then it would feel like, oh, I wish I had more. This will be a great option for you.
And then also, as far as hiring the teachers, like, what are you looking at when you're looking at the resume specifically? Like, as far as where they got their education from, considering like different colleges, you know, Ivy Tech's going to be a lot different than Hillsdale as far as
It's a little hard because it's such a global question.
Right.
So like, oh, we're going to hire a kindergarten teacher is probably going to look a little different than we're going to hire a physics high school teacher. So I think walk with Christ will be a non-negotiable. I think too, the belief and the understanding of what classical education is really, it's not just a different method, it's a totally different method of education. So making sure that we're clear with that at the interview, what we are and what we're not, and then asking teachers, and you can tell some people are very adaptable in their personality, and some people are very rigid, and that doesn't make them a bad person. But we will certainly be looking for adaptable personalities, and then we'll be looking for the education that goes with it. I think what Jennifer said is what I've heard from other schools that I've talked with. Sometimes the longer we teach, the more set in our ways we can become. So doesn't mean that I wouldn't hire somebody who's been teaching 30 years. They might, I cream the crop staff that I hired, after 25, 30 years, and they're my best teachers. So no one divider will make that decision. So is that helpful? I know it's not specific, but we would be looking at specifics. If you're teaching physics or biology in the high school level, that's going to look a little different than first grade.
Thank you.
I believe, Kelly, the answer to your question was about $400 is about how much the curriculum additional cost is going to be. But again, that's going to change if you have multiple children and non-consumable items of the curriculum. So that's what we've estimated now. Prices could change.
Cool.
Yeah, cool stick.
We good? We're good. Anything else?
Man,
All right.
thank you guys for coming.
Hey, this is our, in many ways, our first official gathering as Classical Roots Christian School, at least publicly. Would you be willing to end with the doxology together? Anytime I get a group of people in this room, I try to make them sing. So that's how this goes. Ready? Praise God from